Good morning, my dear friends. It's March, the weather is nice, and I can already see some swollen forsythia buds here and there. What does it mean? That it's time to start pruning roses? It's commonly said that in March, when forsythia start to bloom, we should start pruning roses. Well, the forsythias aren't blooming yet, but I think that for this particular rose I have here on this southern wall, it's absolutely time because I can already see swollen buds and now I can start pruning. Normally I do the first cut on climbing roses like this earlier, just a corrective cut. But this year I couldn't do it because there was quite a big frost, so we'll do everything right now. I'll show you how to use pruning shears to stimulate this plant to bloom, and I'll show you how to trick the plant a little to make it produce even more flowers. My dear friends, before you eagerly start cutting your roses, there are two things you really need to remember. First, choosing the right tools for pruning roses. Why is this so important? First, we have pruning shears. Generally, you can divide them into two types. Shears with two blades, which cut cleanly, and shears that have a crushing part and a cutting part. It's important because if you have thin branches, you can use the shears with two blades. But if you have thicker branches, you need the type that has one part that holds, let's say it crushes, though it doesn't really crush, it just holds, and the other part cuts. That's one thing. Second, of course, the tools should be sharp, because any kind of crushing of the stems causes the torn ends to become an easy entry point for pathogens. And the third most important thing when choosing the right equipment is hygiene. Very often people don't do this, but it's worth disinfecting, meaning it's a good idea to use even a common household disinfectant. And when you change the plant, it's a good idea to disinfect a little each time because it's important not to transfer pathogens from one plant to another. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is proper clothing. When cutting roses, you should wear some older clothes because they might get caught on something here. Preferably not something like wool or fleece, which can easily snag. And another thing, get yourself proper gloves. They can be special rose pruning gloves, long ones with sleeves made of leather. If you don't have those, you can wear slightly thicker gloves because then the pruning will definitely go better. Because you won't have to worry about pricking yourself. My dear friends, I'm standing in front of my rose, Pitch Melba. It's in a specific spot because it's by a southern wall and it blooms incredibly, especially after proper pruning. Anyway, take a look at the shots from last year. How did it look then? I wanted to tell you step by step what to do with these climbing roses. These are roses that very often have very long growths in just one season. And sometimes it happens that you stand in front of such a rose, you look at it in the spring, and you don't know where to start. And first of all, you need to start with an inspection. So I look at these individual branches and see if they've already produced any buds or not yet. If they haven't, this is the right time to start taking care of it. First, I observe all the shoots that are at the front and cut out the ones that are black, dry, or crossing each other too much. Or for example, they're too thick or they're already old. We leave shoots that are no older than 4 to 5 years. When the rose gets stronger and thicker, then we can, for example, cut out that shoot and it will send out new leading shoots from the very bottom. Oh, I just found a dry twig that's coming off from the lower part of the rose. And it absolutely won't be of any use to us anymore, so we just need to cut it out. It's important that we also cut out the ones that are broken. Thank you for your attention. Textured vegetable protein. See Anti Association textured vegetable protein. Listen, a climbing rose like this is really a top performer. It's not that easy with her. Look how many of these shoots, these branches I've already pruned, and how many are still ahead of me. It will take me at least 2-3 hours to cut it all properly. Here I already have a sequence ready. That's why I wanted to show you. Look, I only leave these 6-7 main shoots, not too thick, but also not too thin, because I have to bend them. Why do I have to bend them? I'll tell you that in a moment when we go to my next rose, to the rose garden, because there you can clearly see why you need to bend these shoots. So pruning is one thing, but arranging these shoots properly so that the auxins in the shoot stimulate the lateral buds, that's important. That's the second thing, and now I'll tell you about it. If you want to have several times more flowers on your climbing rose, you need to arrange the shoots like this. Look, here the rose hasn't been pruned yet, but you can clearly see how it was producing flower shoots. From these main shoots, which were bent properly, almost horizontally. Why? Why? Because the hormones we have in these shoots, auxins, very often travel all the way up in our shoot. And only there do they stimulate the flower buds, and then the bud develops at the very top of such a long shoot. However, if we bend it, we trick these hormones a bit, we give light to the buds along the way, and the hormone will stop in the individual dormant flower buds. And they will be stimulated and will produce these short shoots with flowers, and then the whole space will be covered with flowers, not just the end part of such a shoot. So our goal with climbing roses, this is important, is to arrange the shoots as much as possible in these arches and horizontally. That's why gates like the one we have here work so well. For me, this gate from Jagram works perfectly. Not only does it provide support for the rose, but it also looks great visually here. Let me know if you have gates like this for your roses, and if you do, are they wooden or metal? I'd love to hear from you about what works better for you. In the meantime, I'm going back to that giant one because I still have at least 2 more hours of pruning to do there. If you're looking for information about these wooden elements, you'll find a link to Jagram's full offer in the description of this video. That link also takes you straight to an offer with a 10% discount. No need to enter any codes. Everything is already discounted. So check it out. I'm sure you'll find something for your garden. Listen, 1/4 of my pitch Melba rose is already pretty much prepared to be properly bent now, so that these dormant flower buds here will shoot out and it will become beautiful again. The shoots that were growing upwards from the horizontal stems, I have cut back to just 1 or 2 buds. That's enough. From them, new flower shoots will grow. So since it's cut like this, at least 2 will come out. Look here, it's properly cleaned, only the biggest shoots are left. Now it's time to tie them up, that is, to bend them. Listen, try to bend them in such a way that if the shoot is growing in this direction, don't force it the other way, don't turn it around. Unless you have a situation, for example, like I do here, where it's empty in this spot, so I have to tilt some a little in one direction, others in the other. It's a good enough situation that if you don't have enough beams to support or hold them, you can gently bend a shoot like this. I know they're not supposed to touch, but if there's a need to tie 2 shoots together at a certain distance, you can do that too. Most likely this shoot will be removed next season, so it's not really something that will seriously hinder the development of this rose. But also, if they're at the right distance, they won't rub against each other so much. However, with roses, it's not that important. So now I'll try to gently bend these shoots. Not all of them can be bent, so if I come across ones for which I can't find a place to bend, I'll just remove them. Then more energy will be directed to the shoots that remain here. It would be good if I first trimmed everything that I think should be trimmed and only then started bending them, because then I have a full view, but here I can already do it. So look, a shoot that's bent like this won't give us anything here, except that it will move away from this trellis, except that it has produced just 1 flower bud at the top, so you need to bend it like this, so it will give us more flowers here. Maybe it will be better the other way, but I think this side will be okay. And then bent like this, I'll support it a bit, and when it's bent like this, it will produce a lot of new flower shoots here. So I'm going to start tying it up now. What do I use to tie it? Whatever I have on hand. Actually, a plastic coated wire, jute string, or even a plastic tie. There are special things like that, like bands for attaching. However, I believe that with a rose that is this strong, with such sturdy stems, the tie has to be very stable. It can't be anything that stretches, so it needs to be stable enough and not break off. Because when this rose starts to grow, the mass will be enormous and the force will be really strong. Last year it almost pulled away from the wall, so I had to tie it up. So keep in mind that for roses, you need a stable structure, preferably anchored somewhere in the ground. I'm getting to work because, as you can see, there's a lot to do here. There's really a lot of work with a climbing rose like this, a whole lot. But I think it's worth it because by the end of June, even by mid-June, there will be lots of flowers here, just like in these shots from last year. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you too, if you have climbing roses, for proper pruning and for as few scratches on your hands as possible. And I'm also keeping my fingers crossed that you'll decide to sign up for the WOW Garden project, because we're starting very soon. You can find information about it in the video description. And if you want to stay up to date with the work in the garden, just as nature shows us, just as the rhythm of this garden shows, then turn on the subscription if you haven't already, and click the bell so you get notifications. And share it with a wider audience. Share it, meaning post it somewhere on your social media. Let there be even more of these beautifully pruned and beautifully blooming roses in Poland in the summer.